The ultrasound technician's voice faded to a distant murmur as Eliza Harmon stared at the grainy black and white image on the screen. 24 weeks. A baby girl. Her daughter's tiny heart pulsed rhythmically in the darkness. "Would you like me to print some photos for your husband?" the technician asked, her voice cutting through Eliza's thoughts. Eliza nodded automatically, her hand instinctively moving to her swollen belly. "Yes, please. And one for my father, too." Her phone buzzed with a text from her husband, Nathan. "Sorry, stuck in a meeting. Can't make it." "Get pictures?" She typed back a quick yes before slipping the phone into her purse. Another buzz, this time from her best friend, Vanessa. "How'd it go?" "Everything good with baby?" "Sorry I couldn't come with you today. Crazy at work, love you." Eliza didn't reply. Instead, she tucked the ultrasound photos into her wallet and thanked the technician before making her way out of the clinic to her car. She drove in silence to Memorial Hospital, where her father had been for the past 3 weeks. Terminal pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave him 2 months, maybe 3. As she walked through the sterile hallways, her mind replayed the voicemail she'd accidentally discovered yesterday while using Nathan's laptop. His phone had synced to it while he was in the shower. "I miss you so much it hurts," Vanessa's voice had whispered through the speakers. "Nathan, we need to talk about what happens when she finds out." "I love you." Eliza had listened to it 7 times before closing the laptop, her world crumbling around her. She paused outside her father's room, wiping away a stray tear and forcing a smile before pushing the door open. "There's my girl," her father said weakly from the hospital bed, his once robust frame now skeletal under the thin blanket. "Show me my granddaughter." Eliza's smile faltered for just a moment before she reached into her wallet for the ultrasound photos. "Dad," she said quietly, "I think Nathan is having an affair with Vanessa. 3 years earlier, Eliza had never imagined her life would look like this. She had been 31, a successful architectural designer at Greenwood Associates, and had just bought her first home, a small but charming craftsman in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood. Nathan Cooper had walked into her firm one rainy Tuesday morning, seeking design consultation for his boutique hotel development project. Tall with dark hair and striking blue eyes, he carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who had never faced much opposition in life. As the heir to Cooper Hospitality Group, Nathan had grown up in luxury hotels around the world and spoke about interior spaces with unexpected passion. Eliza had been assigned to his project, and their professional relationship quickly evolved into something more personal. Their first date had been at a tiny Italian restaurant tucked away in Pike Place Market. By dessert, they were finishing each other's sentences. "I've never met anyone who sees the world the way you do," Nathan had told her that night, his fingers intertwined with hers across the table. "It's like you understand spaces in 3 dimensions, how people move through them, how they feel in them." 6 months later, Nathan proposed on the rooftop garden she had designed for his first independent hotel project. The wedding was small but elegant, with only close friends and family in attendance. Vanessa Green had been Eliza's maid of honor and best friend since college. They had met in an introductory architecture class, where Vanessa's bold ideas and outgoing personality had immediately drawn Eliza from her shell. Though Vanessa eventually switched to interior design, they remained inseparable through school and into their professional lives. "You two balance each other perfectly," Vanessa had said during her wedding toast, her glass raised to the couple. "Nathan's ambition and Eliza's thoughtfulness. It's a match written in the stars." Life after marriage had been a comfortable rhythm. Eliza continued her work at Greenwood while Nathan expanded his hotel developments. They traveled often, splitting time between project sites and their Seattle home. Children weren't an immediate priority, but they both spoke of wanting a family eventually. When Eliza's father, Robert Harmon, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 18 months into their marriage, the careful balance they had established began to shift. Robert, a retired English professor who had raised Eliza alone after her mother died when she was 12, had always been her emotional anchor. "I'm not afraid of dying." "Liz," he had told her after the diagnosis, I'm just sorry I won't be around to see you become a mother. You'd be wonderful at it, just like your mom was. His words had planted a seed, and 3 months later, Eliza was pregnant. Nathan had seemed surprised but pleased when she told him, pulling her into a tight embrace. "We're going to be parents," he had whispered against her hair. A whole new adventure. As her pregnancy progressed, however, Nathan's business trips became more frequent and longer in duration. Cooper Hospitality was expanding to include properties in Vancouver and Portland, requiring his constant attention. At least that's what he told her. Vanessa had stepped in, keeping Eliza company during Nathan's absences and helping prepare the nursery. She brought over dinner on nights when Eliza was too exhausted after visiting her father to cook, and accompanied her to doctor's appointments when Nathan couldn't make it. "What would I do without you?" Eliza had asked one evening as they sat on her couch, watching a mindless reality show. "You'll never have to find out," Vanessa had replied, squeezing her hand. "I'll always be here for you no matter what." In retrospect, the signs had been there. The whispered phone calls Nathan took in the other room. The way he and Vanessa sometimes shared glances that lingered too long. How Vanessa would occasionally mention details about Nathan's business trips that Eliza herself hadn't known. But grief and pregnancy had consumed Eliza's attention. Between work, hospital visits, and preparing for the baby, she had missed the subtle shift in dynamics until it was impossible to ignore. The day before the ultrasound appointment, Eliza had come home early from the hospital, exhausted from sitting with her father through another round of painkillers and fitful sleep. Nathan was supposedly in Portland, not due back until the following day. She had needed to check her email and, finding her laptop battery dead, had opened Nathan's instead. His phone had synced automatically when she connected to Wi-Fi, and that's when the voicemail notification had appeared on screen. Thinking it might be work-related, something she should alert him about, she had clicked play. Vanessa's voice, intimate and heartbroken, had shattered Eliza's world with 19 words. After discovering the voicemail, Eliza had spent hours sitting motionless at the kitchen table, her mind cycling through every interaction, every conversation, searching for clues she had missed. And now, sitting beside her father's hospital bed, she found herself recounting everything. Her suspicions, the voicemail, her fear and anger, to the one person who had never let her down. Robert Harmon listened silently, his eyes never leaving his daughter's face. When she finally fell quiet, he reached for her hand with his frail one. "What are you going to do, Liz?" he asked softly. Eliza looked down at the ultrasound photos spread across his blanket. "I don't know, Dad," she admitted. "I really don't know." The Portland lie unraveled first. After leaving the hospital, Eliza had called Nathan's assistant under the pretense of sending documents to his hotel. "Oh, Mr. Cooper canceled his Portland trip yesterday morning," the assistant had informed her cheerfully. "He said he needed to focus on the Vancouver property instead. Should I forward the documents there?" Eliza thanked her and hung up, her suspicions deepening. Nathan had texted her last night about a productive meeting with the Portland investors and how he was turning in early at the hotel. Instead of going home, she drove to Vanessa's downtown loft apartment. The doorman knew her well. She had her own access card as Vanessa's emergency contact. She considered going up but realized she wasn't ready for that confrontation yet. Instead, she parked across the street and waited. At 7:42 p.m., Nathan's Range Rover pulled into the garage entrance of Vanessa's building. Eliza felt oddly calm as she watched him step out, adjust his tie, and punch in the access code. He was carrying an overnight bag and what looked like a bottle of wine. Her husband looked relaxed, happy even, as he disappeared into the building. She sat there for another hour, letting the reality sink in. This wasn't a momentary indiscretion or a recent development. This was an established affair, complete with routines and comfort. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Just finished dinner with the Vancouver team. "How are you feeling? Baby doing okay?" A strange detachment washed over Eliza as she stared at the message. The man she had married, the father of her unborn child, was lying to her without hesitation or apparent guilt. She didn't reply. Instead, She drove to the office of her firm's legal counsel, Marcus Weller. Though it was after hours, Marcus had always told her to call him directly in case of emergencies. This, she decided, qualified. Marcus listened gravely as she laid out what she knew, occasionally making notes. "I need to understand what I'm facing legally," Eliza explained, her voice surprisingly steady. "If I decide to leave him, with the baby coming and my father's medical bills." "Washington is a no-fault state," Marcus explained. "But given the circumstances, we could potentially negotiate favorable terms. The timing of this, while you're pregnant and caring for a terminally ill parent, won't look good for him if things get contentious." He advised her to gather evidence discreetly, consult with a family lawyer, and most importantly, take care of herself and the baby. "Don't make any permanent decisions while you're in shock," he cautioned. "Give yourself time to think clearly. And Eliza, I'm truly sorry you're going through this." That night, she stayed in a hotel downtown, unable to face the home she shared with Nathan. She lay awake until dawn, formulating a plan. The next morning, she called in sick to work and went to her bank. As a successful professional with her own income, she had maintained a separate account alongside their joint accounts. Now she withdrew a significant sum and opened a new account at a different bank. Next, she drove to 3 different real estate agencies, inquiring about short-term rentals. By noon, she had secured a furnished 2-bedroom apartment near the hospital where her father was staying, available for immediate move-in. She spent the afternoon moving essential items from her home while Nathan was at work: clothes, personal documents, family heirlooms, and supplies for the baby. The nursery they had been preparing together, with its pale yellow walls and woodland creatures mural that Vanessa had painted, made her pause. Vanessa had spent weekends helping design this room, all while sleeping with its intended occupant's father. Eliza grabbed the stuffed elephant her father had bought, the baby's first gift, and left everything else behind. By evening, she was settled into the sterile but functional apartment. She had not responded to any of Nathan's increasingly concerned texts or Vanessa's casual check-ins. Then, as she sat on the unfamiliar couch surrounded by hastily packed boxes, her phone rang with a call from the hospital. Her father had taken a turn for the worse. When Eliza arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later, breathless and terrified, she found her father conscious but clearly weaker than he had been that morning. "The doctor says it could be days, maybe a week," the night nurse told her softly. "I'm so sorry," Eliza nodded, numb with grief. She pulled a chair close to her father's bed and took his hand. "You moved out, didn't you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She shouldn't have been surprised that he knew. Robert Harmon had always been able to read her. "Yes," she admitted. "I couldn't stay there knowing—" "Good girl," he murmured. "Your mother would be proud of your strength." They sat in silence for a while, the rhythmic beeping of monitors the only sound in the room. "Liz," her father said eventually, "I need you to promise me something." "Anything, Dad. Don't let this break you. Whatever happens with Nathan and Vanessa, don't let it define you. You're going to be someone's mother soon. That's what matters most now." Eliza felt tears spill down her cheeks. "I promise," her father squeezed her hand weakly. "And one more thing. When the time comes, make them face what they've done. Not for revenge. For closure. You deserve that much." Before Eliza could respond, the door to the hospital room swung open. Nathan stood in the doorway, his face a mask of confusion and concern. "Eliza, what's going on?" "I've been calling you all day. Why aren't you answering? The house looks like you've—" He stopped abruptly, noticing the tension in the room and Robert's grave expression. "Nathan," Robert said, his voice suddenly stronger, filled with a father's protective fury. "You need to leave. Now." Nathan looked between them, realization dawning on his face. "Eliza, whatever you think is happening, I know about you and Vanessa," Eliza said quietly, still holding her father's hand. "I know everything," the blood drained from Nathan's face. "We need to talk about this. In private. This isn't good for the baby." "Don't you dare," Eliza cut him off, her voice ice cold. "Don't you dare use our daughter as a shield right now." Robert's monitors began beeping more rapidly as his pulse increased. A nurse appeared in the doorway behind Nathan. "Sir, I need to ask you to leave," she said firmly. "Mr. Harmon needs to remain calm." Nathan hesitated, then nodded stiffly. "Eliza, please. Call me when you're ready to talk." After he left, Eliza turned back to her father, alarmed by the exertion evident on his face. "It's okay, Dad. He's gone. Try to rest." Robert's breathing eventually steadied, but his eyes remained intense. "Promise me, Liz. Make them face it. All of it." "I promise," she whispered again, though she had no idea how she would fulfill that vow. 3 days later, Robert Harmon died peacefully in his sleep with Eliza by his side. She hadn't spoken to Nathan or Vanessa since the hospital confrontation, though both had bombarded her with calls, texts, and emails. On the morning of her father's funeral, Eliza woke in her temporary apartment, 25 weeks pregnant and completely alone. As she dressed in a black maternity dress, she placed a hand on her belly, feeling her daughter kick. "It's just you and me now," she whispered to her unborn child. "But we're going to be okay, and I'm going to keep my promise to Grandpa." The funeral was small but well attended. Robert Harmon had been beloved by his former students and colleagues. Eliza stood stoically beside the casket, accepting condolences with quiet dignity. Nathan arrived halfway through the service, standing at the back of the church. Eliza felt his presence like a physical weight, but didn't acknowledge him. It wasn't until the reception at her father's favorite restaurant that Vanessa appeared, her face pale and drawn. She approached Eliza cautiously, wringing her hands. "Eliza, I am so sorry about your dad," she began, her voice trembling. "And I'm sorry for everything else. We never meant for this to happen." Eliza regarded her oldest friend with detached curiosity. "When did it start?" Vanessa glanced around nervously at the other mourners. "Maybe this isn't the best time." "When?" Eliza repeated, her voice steady. "Last year," Vanessa admitted. "During the Vancouver project launch, 15 months. While Eliza had been caring for her dying father and then carrying their child, Nathan and Vanessa had been carrying on an affair for 15 months. "I understand if you hate me," Vanessa continued, tears welling in her eyes. "But please know we never wanted to hurt you. It just happened." "Things like this don't just happen, Vanessa," Eliza said quietly. "They're choices. Hundreds of choices, made day after day." Before Vanessa could respond, Nathan appeared beside them, his expression tense. "Eliza, we need to talk privately. About the baby. About us. About the future." Eliza looked between them, her husband and her best friend, and felt a strange calm settle over her grief. "Not today," she said firmly. "I'm burying my father today. But tomorrow, both of you come to the house at noon. We'll talk then." They both nodded, relief evident on their faces at being given a chance to explain. "And Nathan," Eliza added, "bring the papers for the Vancouver property transfer. The ones in your desk drawer?" Confusion flashed across his face. "Those are just preliminary documents. They're not finalized yet." "Bring them anyway," Eliza insisted. "I want to understand exactly where things stand with all your projects." The next day, Eliza arrived at the house she had shared with Nathan 30 minutes early. She walked through each room methodically, taking photos of valuable items and documenting the current state of their shared home. In Nathan's office, she unlocked his desk with the spare key he didn't know she had and methodically photographed financial documents, property deeds, and business correspondence. As an architect who often dealt with contracts, she knew exactly what to look for. By the time the doorbell rang at noon, Eliza was seated calmly at the dining room table, a glass of water in front of her, several folders arranged neatly beside it. Nathan entered first, followed closely by Vanessa. They both looked uncomfortable and exhausted, clearly having spent a sleepless night preparing for this confrontation. "Sit down," Eliza instructed, gesturing to the chairs across from her. They obeyed silently. "Did you bring the Vancouver papers?" she asked Nathan. He nodded, placing a folder on the table. "Let me explain how this is going to work." Eliza began, her voice calm and professional, as though she were presenting a design concept to clients. I'm going to tell you what I know, then what I want, and then you're going to leave. Nathan started to object, but Eliza held up her hand. No interruptions. You've both said enough behind my back for the past 15 months. She opened the first folder in front of her. Nathan, I know about the money you've been funneling from our joint account into the shell company you created last year. I know it was initially for tax purposes, but then became a convenient way to finance your trips with Vanessa. His face paled. I also know that the Vancouver property is being registered under a limited liability company that lists Vanessa as a partner. Eliza turned to her former friend. That's interesting, since you have no hospitality experience or investment capital. Unless, of course, sleeping with the CEO counts as experience now. Vanessa flinched visibly. I've spoken with Marcus Weller, Eliza continued. He's prepared to help me file for divorce on grounds that would be very public and very damaging to Cooper Hospitality's reputation. Infidelity during a pregnancy while the wife is caring for a dying parent. The press would love it, Nathan's jaw tightened. Are you threatening me? No, Eliza said simply. I'm giving you a choice. She opened another folder and removed a document. This is my proposal. In exchange for my silence and a quick, quiet divorce, I want the following. Full ownership of this house. A trust fund for our daughter equal to 30% of your current net worth. And the Queen Anne property that was intended for the boutique wellness retreat. The Queen Anne property had been one of Nathan's most ambitious projects, a historic building he had purchased a year ago with plans to convert it into an exclusive wellness hotel. Eliza had done the preliminary designs herself. That's absurd, Nathan sputtered. The Queen Anne property alone is worth millions, and 30% of my net worth would cripple my business. You should have thought of that before you decided to cripple our marriage, Eliza replied evenly. And before you used company funds to finance your affair. She turned to Vanessa. As for you, I want your resignation from Greenwood Associates. Effective immediately, Vanessa's eyes widened. Eliza, please. Your career was built on connections I helped you make, Eliza cut in. You can rebuild elsewhere, preferably in another city. The room fell silent as Nathan and Vanessa absorbed the severity of Eliza's demands. Finally, Nathan spoke. And if we refuse? Eliza slid the third folder across the table. Then I go public with everything. The affair, the financial improprieties, all of it. I've documented enough to ensure Cooper Hospitality's investors would have serious questions. Nathan opened the folder and paled as he flipped through the contents. Bank statements, email printouts, hotel receipts, photos of him entering Vanessa's building. You've been planning this? He accused. No, Eliza corrected him. I've been protecting myself and my daughter since the moment I found out what you two were doing. There's a difference. She placed a hand on her swollen belly. My father made me promise something before he died. He told me to make you both face what you've done. Not for revenge, but for closure. Tears filled her eyes for the first time since they'd arrived. So here it is. I want you to really see what you've done. Not just to me, but to yourselves. You've built a relationship on lies and betrayal. Whatever happiness you think you've found with each other, it's tainted. It will always be tainted. Vanessa was openly crying now. Nathan stared at the table, unable to meet Eliza's gaze. You have 24 hours to decide, Eliza said, rising from her chair. I'll be at the Marriott downtown until then. If I don't hear from you, I'll assume you've chosen the public option. As she moved toward the door, Nathan finally looked up. Eliza, wait. What about the baby? What about visitation, shared custody? Eliza turned back to face him. You'll have standard visitation rights, supervised until she's 2 years old. We can revisit the arrangement after that, depending on your behavior. And us? He asked quietly. Is there any chance at all? No, Eliza said firmly. That's the one thing that's not negotiable. 23 hours later, Nathan's lawyer called to accept her terms. 6 months later, Eliza sat on the roof garden of what had once been Nathan's Queen Anne property. Now it was the future site of the Robert Harmon Center for Literary Arts. a combination of small press publishing house, writer's workshop space, and community library that she was developing in her father's memory. Her daughter, Sophia, slept peacefully in a bassinet beside her as Eliza reviewed architectural plans. At 8 weeks old, Sophia had her mother's dark curls and her father's blue eyes, a combination that sometimes made Eliza's heart ache despite everything. The divorce had been finalized 2 weeks before Sophia's birth. Nathan had complied with all of Eliza's demands, likely realizing that fighting would cost him more in the long run, both financially and reputationally. He had been present for Sophia's birth, standing awkwardly in the corner of the delivery room, clearly torn between his duty to his daughter and his guilt toward her mother. Eliza had allowed it, reminding herself that her issues with Nathan shouldn't affect Sophia's relationship with her father. As for Vanessa, she had moved to Chicago shortly after the confrontation. Eliza had heard through mutual friends that she was working for a small interior design firm there. They hadn't spoken since that day at the house. The sound of footsteps on the gravel path interrupted Eliza's thoughts. She looked up to see Marcus Weller approaching, a folder tucked under his arm. "The final paperwork for the center," he announced, taking a seat across from her. "Once you sign, construction can begin next month." Eliza smiled, feeling a genuine sense of excitement for the first time in nearly a year. "Dad would have loved this place." "He would have been proud of you," Marcus agreed, glancing at the sleeping baby. "Both for this project and for how you've handled everything else." After finalizing the paperwork, Marcus hesitated before leaving. "I ran into Nathan yesterday at the courthouse. He mentioned he's moved to Portland permanently." Eliza nodded, unsurprised. "Cooper Hospitality is opening a new property there. It makes sense. He also said he and Vanessa have ended things," Marcus added carefully. "Apparently it fell apart soon after the divorce was finalized." "I'm not surprised," Eliza said quietly. Relationships built on deception rarely last once the excitement of sneaking around is gone. After Marcus left, Eliza picked up her sleeping daughter and walked to the edge of the roof garden. From there, she could see Elliott Bay stretching toward the horizon, ferries crisscrossing the water beneath a clear blue sky. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan, confirming his visitation for the following weekend. She replied with a brief acknowledgement, then slipped the phone back into her pocket. The past year had brought more pain than she could have imagined surviving, yet here she was, standing strong with her daughter in her arms and a new purpose taking shape around her. Her father's final request had been fulfilled not through vengeance, but through reclaiming her life on her own terms. Nathan and Vanessa had indeed faced what they'd done, and the natural consequences had followed. As for Eliza, she had discovered a strength within herself she hadn't known existed. The woman who had once sought approval and validation from others now stood confidently on her own, making decisions that honored her values and secured her daughter's future. Sophia stirred in her arms, tiny eyelids fluttering open to reveal those familiar blue eyes. Eliza smiled down at her daughter, feeling the weight of grief and betrayal lift just a little more. "Let's go home, sweet girl," she whispered. "We have a lot to look forward to." As they descended from the rooftop, Eliza felt the warm spring breeze against her face. It carried the scent of new possibilities and the quiet satisfaction of promises kept.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.